This idea that if you're great at what you do, people will come to you is a little bit like the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come, right? And most of us who are more high caliber, more established folks, we know that it's not enough to be good at what we do. We have to be visible and we have to build trust. And so if you are a premium service provider, if you're a premium coach, if you attract and want to attract high ticket clients, a brand video positions you as that premium person. So you are no longer fighting to be heard. You are no longer fighting for visibility. I even think people with big audiences play this game of fighting for visibility. When a brand video positions you as the go-to person, most people actually know that it's not good enough to be good enough. You have to stand out and you have to be different from the get-go. You might have the best work possible. It's way more about how people are perceiving you, whether you're memorable to them, and where they position you in their mind. Do they position you as just another Joe Schmo coach, or do they position you as the undeniable go-to? Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Empire Secrets. I'm your host, Mariana Henninger, and today, not exactly today, but right around this time, marks the 2-year anniversary of Brand Magnetic. And I've been talking about brand videos every single day for a long time now, and I want to address some of the things that have come up in conversations. So whether I've been on podcasts or speaking in memberships, or just like on my social media content, or people that reach out to me and they're curious about a brand video, or I'm just like chatting with peers, chatting with business owners about brand videos, I have heard some things kind of consistently that I feel are myths. And I want to talk about why they're myths and why they need to be debunked. So I have for you today 14 myths that high caliber business owners might have, or might concepts that are not true around either brand video or marketing in general. And I want to start with this conversation that I had with she's a multi-7-figure business owner. She's been in the space for a very long time. She's very niched, so not everyone would know her name if I mentioned her. But I have loved having this conversation with her because she and I met in a peer mastermind, and she got to know what I do. I was actually on her podcast very recently, and I kind of asked her, I was like, hey, what do you think of a brand video? Tell me what you have learned about a brand video. Why would you not do this? Right? So I love hearing what people say. Like, and most people will be like, no, I actually really want to do it. And the thing that she answered me was like, I just feel like I could do this myself. So that's what got me thinking about, let me address this idea. And I actually want to tell another story around that. All of these other myths that have circulated in my business conversations around brand videos and about building trust in the marketplace. So let me start with first and foremost. So myth number 1, I'm great at what I do, so my work should speak for itself. And the reason this is a myth is that people think I don't need a brand video when my work is good enough to attract good clients. Now, you might have a marketing system that works well. So in this case, with this gal that I chatted with, she was like, we're actually doing pretty good. We attract the exact niche that we work with. There are lots of people in our audience. We have good content. Like we know what we're doing. We have a good system. But so I was like, oh, okay. So maybe you're not the right person for a brand video. Like if things are working smoothly and you're happy, then maybe you don't need one, right? And so she's like, well, I always want to accelerate my sales. I always want to like close people faster. And I was like, okay, so let's stop. But this idea that if you're great at what you do, people will come to you is a little bit like the field of dreams, where like if you build it, they will come, right? And most of us who are more like high caliber, more established folks, we know that it's not enough to be good at what we do. We have to be visible and we have to build trust. And so if you are a premium service provider, if you're a premium coach, if you attract and want to attract high ticket clients, a brand video positions you as that premium person. So you are no longer fighting to be heard. You are no longer fighting for visibility. I even think people with big audiences play this game of fighting for visibility. When a brand video positions you as the go-to person, because it's high level, because it's sophisticated, because it's different, but because it's engineered to create emotional connection and trust. So for all those reasons, we know, like most people actually know that it's not good enough to be good enough. You have to stand out and you have to be different from the get-go. And so you might have the best work possible. It's way more about how people are perceiving you and whether they're remembering you, whether you're memorable to them and where they position you in their minds. Like, do they position you as just another Joe Schmo coach, or do they position you as the go-to, the undeniable go-to? All right, so myth number two that I come across quite a bit is that people don't care about my story. It's not about me, right? My business is not about me. It's about helping other people. And the way that I frame this is that in the past, so I would say literally before the story brand framework by Donald Miller, all marketing, most marketing, let's just say, revolved around how awesome my business is, right? When you went on somebody's website, it's like, oh, our accolades and we're amazing and work with us, right? When Donald Miller brought that along with story brand, it kind of shifted to the other extreme where your customer is a hero and it's all about them. And I feel like people really took that the wrong way in that they made everything about their audience without realizing that the audience really cares about who they are. There's a reason why your About Me page is the second most visited page on your website. There's a reason why people are checking you out once they've discovered you in the magical, first discovery moment that I always talk about. If you have heard this podcast, you've heard me talking about this, where people are hooked by some value or some comment that you made. And the very next thing they do is they check you out, right? They want to assess whether you are worth paying attention to. And so for that reason, it's important to know how to tell your story. And it's important that in your brand video, and this is the framework that I teach, it's not just your story, right? It's not just a story about you. It's not the origin story that you think is most important to you. It's typically actually not the most important things that happen in your life. What you need to share in your brand story and in your brand video is which story and how those stories are going to create the most trust in your audience. So it's really all about them. It's about the feelings that you're generating in them. And a well told brand story builds trust because people feel understood. They feel like you get them, that you care about them, and that you're the expert. But it's not just about your expertise. So that is myth number two. Myth number three is I'm not good on camera, so my brand video won't be effective. Now, there are all sorts of ways to look at this, but the thing that I most teach my students is that you're not an influencer right now. You are a teacher. And that helps a lot of my students. And for those that don't, I give them a little bit tough love. And what I tell them is that get through it because it's worth it. You are working on a forever asset for your business. This is not a reel that you're going to post. You're going to hate me, and then you're going to post and it's going to disappear after a few hours, if that, right? When you create your brand video, when you take the time to really build something beautiful, you can use it for years to come in your business. And so even though you feel like you might not be good on camera, ultimately it's all about your customer. It's all about teaching them. And I have a bunch of different techniques that I teach my students to be confident in front of the camera. And one of them I'll share with you today, which is I teach them to have a mantra, right? When I was filming my brand video, my mantra, it kind of fluctuated. Sometimes it was like, I'm going to make a ton of money, but it was mostly about my audience where I love them so much. I love teaching them. I love empowering them. I love getting them out of their skin. I love putting them in the spotlight. I love how much their story is going to impact other people. So having a mantra when you're in front of the camera is so important to feeling relaxed and feeling like you're in the right energy that is going to attract those clients to you as well. Now, myth number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is that brand videos are only for big businesses. Absolutely not. In fact, it doesn't matter what size business you have. You can be a tiny business and you can have a massive impact with your brand video. People connect with people. People do business with people. So it does not matter how big your business is. It matters how much people connect with you, and obviously doing that through a brand video. They want to connect with you before they invest. So if you're selling a transformation A brand video is your most powerful tool to get people involved and connected, to make them feel like you care. Myth number 6 is that I don't need a brand video. I just need to post more on social media. So this kind of goes back to what we talked about, where we are so conditioned to think about everything that's needed to build trust. And the thing that's kind of hammered in us constantly is how consistent we need to be about showing up, right? I did a post recently on Instagram about the fact that we feel so bad. We can feel so bad, right? We can feel so guilty when we don't post, because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not taking advantage of free content, of free publicity, of free exposure. But at the same time, if unless you have a content team, it can be exhausting to feed this machine that never is satisfied, right? And no matter how much you post, you have no idea whether your post is going to take off or whether it's going to flop. And not having control over that, I think, is like the most disencouraging part of posting on social media, is like you have no control over how many people are going to see this, right? In opposition to that, your brand video is placed in such strategic places, top of funnel. There's a whole system around how to use your brand video. And this is obviously what I teach, that makes it invincible. It is algorithm proof, because there is no way anybody coming into your universe will not have multiple chances to watch your brand video. And so you're not reliant on the algorithm to get people to see you. So it's not just about posting more on social media. So the next myth is my brand video has to be a certain length to be effective, right? I actually had a conversation with this multimillionaire online business owner. You'd probably recognize his name. And when we first got started talking, he understood that my brand videos were like documentaries, right? And they were like 45 minutes long, an hour long, feature length films about entrepreneurs. And I told him, like, as amazing as that would be, so I agree with you there, it would be amazing. Most people's stories don't lend themselves to a long feature film. In fact, I feel like most stories don't lend themselves that way. So when I watch, I'm an Emmy Award winner. When I watch documentaries on Netflix or on Hulu or on HBO, I often think they should be much, much shorter. And it's not only me, it's a lot of my peers as well. And so it really is, the shorter, the better. The more you cut, the more impactful it will be. So I know that immersion causes conversion. There are a lot of studies that show that you need 7 hours of exposure and consistent content in order to build trust. But I truly believe that that is bogus. You do not need 7 hours in order to build trust. You need impactful, intentional, curated storytelling to build trust. And you can do it in so much less time. I have proof with my clients, I have proof with myself of people who have converted with way less than 7 hours, to the tune of multi-thousands of dollars in revenue. So completely false. I think if you're playing the same game that everyone else, it's probably more than 7 hours that people need to consume. And think of it, if each of your reels is like, I don't know, maybe 15 seconds long, and people maybe spend another 20 seconds reading your caption, if you were good at hooking them, if the algorithm showed it to them, that is a heck of a lot of social media content to get to 7 hours, right? I don't want to play that game. A brand video is 2 to 3 minutes long. It tells your story in a very intentional, curated way so that people feel like they've just had hours and hours with you. You are unforgettable to them. You build trust so much faster than 7 hours of touch points. All right, next up is I need a huge audience before a brand video will be useful. Now, having a huge audience is great, although a lot of people argue that, like, it doesn't matter how big your numbers are, it matters what the quality of your audience is, all of that. I agree with 100%. And yes, it would be nice to have a bigger audience. However, you do not need a bigger audience. You do not need a massive audience for a brand video to be effective. In fact, a brand video helps so much more if you have a smaller audience, because each person that connects with you is impacted a lot more quickly. A brand video is a powerful way to leverage a very small audience so that you are not relying on all of these numbers in order to convert. You need each person that comes in the door is going to have a powerful connection with you. Maybe they're not ready for your service. Maybe they're not the right fit for your service, but you're having impact on every single person. So the size of your audience does not matter. Next myth is that this one I hear a lot, kind of breaks my heart if I'm being super honest. But a brand video is just nice to have. It's not essential. So hopefully by now I've made a million arguments as to why that's just not true. I have to say, when I finally had my brand video come out, my launch revenue increased by 600%. It was actually a bit more than that, but 600% is a nice round number. And I still convert to this day incredibly high proportionally to the size of my list, my email list. So do not tell me a brand video is a nice to have. A brand video is a must have because you are already spending time creating content. You are already spending time being visible in front of other audiences. It is an injustice and it is a misuse of your energy and time if you are not maximizing the impact of every single thing you create. And maximizing that impact means that every single lead, every single person that comes in through this visibility, through the content that you create, is being impacted, is feeling like you are their person. So without a brand video, you are throwing a ton of energy away. You are wasting a ton of time and energy and resources playing the long game. Next up, if my content is good, my audience will automatically connect with me. Now, maybe your content has to be really, really good. And I would say nothing's automatic. To me, a brand video is created intentionally for immediate personal connection. Everything else is a coin in the tipping in the jar of trust. And so I use this metaphor a lot where like every single time you show up, and I would say every single time your audience sees you show up, because it's not just about showing up, they actually have to see you show up, you are dropping a coin in that jar. And once the jar is full, you have trust. And the fastest way to accelerate that is with a brand video. So the idea that if your content is good, your audience will automatically connect with you, it's just not true. There's nothing about your content that will make people understand you and get you as quickly as the frameworks that I use in a brand video. So really is about people remembering you for how you make them feel and not just what you taught them, not just your expertise, not just the fact that you showed up consistently over a few months. It takes many months of showing up consistently. And again, for them to see you consistently in order to build trust without a brand video. Next up, I have to keep up with social media algorithms to grow. So the myth is that if you don't post constantly, if I disappear from my audience's radar, people will forget who I am, right? And to some extent, that's true. It depends on how much trust you've built over time with that content. And the reality is that a brand video will help you so much more become sticky and unforgettable, even if you're not showing up consistently. So while if you don't show up, people will likely forget who you are or be like, they won't remember that you're gone. They also might not remember who you are when you show back up. It really kind of depends. That's a little bit, it depends on how much trust you've built, how much you've shown up before you take a gap. But truly, when you create a brand video, that is a very strongest way to solidify your image and your feeling that you've created around who you are. So that even if you don't show up every single day, 3 times a day on social, let's say, people still remember who you are the times that you do show up. And coming up next, I need to constantly nurture my leads to convert them. Now, this is a marketing sort of golden rule that everyone believes, that you need to show up consistently. You need to nurture your leads consistently in order to convert them. We have just accepted that it takes 6 to 12 months of showing up on social media every single day, multiple times a day, in order for people to convert. And the reality is that I have seen over and over with a brand video that that's just not true, that people are willing to react so much more quickly than with a brand video than if there isn't one in place. And so the brand video is a disruptor to this idea that it takes that long. It takes months and months and months of building content in order to convert. So for example, I have a client, a brand video client called Casey, who very brilliantly, she used to work in marketing at L'Oreal, and she had this brilliant idea when we finished her brand video. She took her brand video and she created GIFs from it, and multiple GIFs from different scenes in her brand video. And she looked at her welcome sequence and she said, well, this is the email I usually introduce myself. And my open rate is kind of low. My click through rate is pretty low. When she added the GIFs from her brand video, where she talks about herself and her story, and then she linked out to her brand video, her response rate, in her words, skyrocketed. I believe the number was 3 or 4 times what she was getting before. So people were watching, were engaged in those gifts in the email that they got, and they were clicking through to her brand video. Not only were they clicking through and watching, they were responding to that email with their own stories. So that is a massive, massive ROI with absolutely cold audiences. These were people that were downloading her lead magnet and feeling immediately after watching her brand video that they knew her. They felt connected to her enough to share their own stories from the get-go. Like, if that is not amazing ROI with absolutely cold audiences, I don't know what is. Like, people kill for email responses, especially with people just joining their email list. So I love the story that Casey tells, the numbers that she has gotten from her brand video. And that just goes to show you that it doesn't take 6 to 12 months of building, of nurturing your leads. It takes one amazingly curated, highly intentional video, which is a brand video. All right, second to the last myth, I don't have time to create a brand video. Now, you could probably say that about many different things in life. I don't have time to do XYZ. And the reality is that you should choose the most effective marketing for your business. 10x is easier than 2x for a reason. It's because you're doing fewer things that have bigger impacts. So the brand video is a perfect example of a 10x versus a 2x. You can keep posting on social media. You can keep doing all the summits. You can keep showing up. I'm not saying you shouldn't do those things. I'm just saying that unless you have a really high leverage asset that builds trust faster, once those leads come in, you are operating on 2x. A brand video takes what you're doing, takes all of the effort that you are already making around your visibility and amplifies that to the extreme. And so when those leads come in, when those people come in to your email list, when they show up to your universe, they remember you. There's so much more impact because they feel like you get them, you care about them, and you're the expert. You are now their person. So it's not about not having time to create a brand video. It's about being intentional about how you spend that time. And the same goes for DIYing a brand video. I used to tell people all the time, like, anybody can create, it won't be exactly how I do it with you, but just have something there. Right. And I used to talk about that all the time. And now I feel like I have done people a massive disservice because telling your own story is incredibly difficult, almost impossible to do in an extremely effective way. And so it's kind of a waste of time because you're trying to figure it out on your own. But the way that I explain it is like you can ask the most highest surgeon in the world. You can ask the best surgeon in the world to perform surgery on somebody else and they'll probably do it. But to perform surgery on themselves is basically impossible. So just like you can't read the label from inside the jar, telling your own story in a way that's effective is incredibly, incredibly difficult. So I don't recommend you do it alone. I recommend you have some help and you have some feedback, even if that's with AI at first, which is why I have a short course on how to do this with AI so that you at least have some sort of feedback to your story. Last but not least, it kind of fits into this last myth that I told you about is like, oh, I can figure this out on my own. I don't recommend it because it's extremely hard to do. And I'm not just saying that because I want to sell more courses. I'm saying that because I went through this myself and I'm a freaking professional. I can tell people stories in my sleep. I've been telling people stories for almost 20 years now, told stories on the homepage of the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Time Magazine, NBC News, Peacock, the biggest news organizations in the world, massive audiences. I can tell people stories in my sleep and I know how to do it extremely effectively. That's why I won an Emmy and have 2 nominations. And I won a bunch of other awards in journalism as well. Telling my own story was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It is extremely hard. And I had my own frameworks to follow. So Doing it yourself means you are spending time figuring it out. You are not necessarily, very unlikely, nailing your messaging. To tell your story, your brand story, so that it fits in 2.5, 3 minutes is nearly impossible doing it by yourself. And so time is your biggest asset. Do not waste your time trying to figure this out on your own. If you want to understand that smart entrepreneurs aren't wasting their time on trial and error, they invest in proven strategies that really have a fast track success and position them as the go-to authority in their industry. If you want to understand what makes a brand video actually work and one that isn't well done not work, if you want to understand how the nuts and bolts of a brand story works to convert and build trust faster so that you can convert more quickly, so that every marketing and visibility effort that you have has a lot more impact, I have some good news for you. I am hosting my once a year workshop. It's called Undeniable. It's going to be amazing. It's coming up on February 25th. You do not want to miss this. I have made this stupid cheap and affordable. I could be charging a whole lot more for this workshop, but I have made it accessible to everyone. So grab your ticket before the prices go up. So the prices are going up on February 24th. Grab your tickets ASAP. There's some special prizes for the first folks to grab their tickets at brandmagnetic.com/undeniable. So it's brandmagnetic.com/undeniable. And I'll leave a link in the show notes. And I hope this episode was really eye-opening for you. I wanted to tackle the biggest myths that people have around telling their brand story, about creating a brand video, about what it takes to build trust. You do not have to spend 6 to 12 months building trust in tiny drops at a time. You do not have to spend that energy and that time doing that. If you spend the energy and time instead creating a high leverage asset, a forever video that is the brand video, you can build trust so much faster. And my system teaches you how to implement that in over 50 different places in your funnels and in your other social media presence. I hope to see you at Undeniable. It's going to be an amazing workshop. So grab your ticket once again at brandmagnetic.com/undeniable. Do not miss this. I have no idea when I'm teaching another free workshop again. This is by far the cheapest way that you can be in the room with me, learning from me. I charge over $20,000 for my services. This is your opportunity to grab it for pennies. Come with me to the Undeniable workshop on February 25th. Grab your ticket at brandmagnetic.com/undeniable. And I will see you on the next episode of Empire Secrets. Bye for now.